Wait, should we, you know what, let me start with this, because once we get into this,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
So is that So we're back, and I just wanted to ask Abby a little bit, now that the time has passed, the past 3 years, since you first performed the story and first met Bertha, if you have any thoughts you want to share with the wisdom of the ensuing years, and also any thoughts about how you would like to continue with telling Bertha's story.
Well, since then, I really do think the class, for me personally, helped me a lot. It helped me understand my personal history and my family history, and it also helped me, it pushed me to talk to my grandmother more, which was really important to me, since my grandmother, I know you had talked about how you hadn't shared much with your children and grandchildren when they were younger, and my grandmother, while she told her story to people as well, never ever talked about it with me. And after talking to you and hearing your personal story, it became even more important to me to understand my grandmother's. And since then, I have been able to, with some of the techniques that you guys taught me, and some of what seemed important to you, I was able to talk to her about. So that was, for me personally, very, very moving. And then on another note, I think even in like academically, so I know this seems, I was a history major, and I noticed throughout my papers, I had to put together a portfolio for graduating. And I noticed that a changing point for me was this course, where I always like to add kind of a personal story to it. But I noticed after this course, in all my history papers, basically, I started with a personal story, since it helped me understand what was going on in the world at the time, just as your story really opened up to me what I had been taught about for so many years at Jewish day school, like the war and the Holocaust, and your story really kind of gave me that personal understanding. So like in writing history papers, I tried to incorporate that as well. So when I could, how I came to understand history, I could do that for the people reading my papers.
That's wonderful. That's very nice. That's nice. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Really.
I keep thinking about how important this conversation is, and that we really need, when we can, even if it's about 6 months after the course, we can't make the students do it, the class will be done, but even if we got one student from each of the groups wanted to come, to keep doing this more quickly after the class.
That's exactly.
I think also what would be interesting though, and I wish we could have done, is we did it later on. Laura and I came to your synagogue and gave the story and while you were there, but I think even during class time, if instead of like giving different people's story at different schools, I think what would be very interesting is at the same school have the 3 same people as well as the survivor come to talk to the students at the same time.
I see that's a wonderful idea, because what you do is you present a story, but they don't see who that person is. And I think that they would get a better, they would have a chance to ask the survivor. Say, from your story, they could ask the survivor.
Especially while it's still possible.
You see that, so that I think is also a very good tool to use.
And that way I could also get continued feedback and get to understand what your feeling was about my story, because I still for a while kind of felt lost on where you were with what I had done.
And this is funny that Billy is here interviewing us, here taping us, because Billy was one of the situations we had something like that. They weren't with a group of students, but Mr. Manischewitz came for a special evening where it was just his story with 4 students. They had 4 that year interviewing him. And his family members came, college students came, just friends of the students. And he did speak a little bit after, but I think it was a really neat model to have that experience. And part of the class is each year it's different how the layout of the class and the dates fall. But I think this is something definitely to bring up to Steve.
Yeah, that's very good.
Abby, is there anything else before we turn over to Bertha? Anything else you want to say about the class, or where you want to go from here with Bertha's story and your own?
I really wish that I knew more of how I could take the story, like of how I would love to be able to go into schools and talk to schools and share your story with them, since I think that that's the most important place to go. And you were talking about how like going into the inner city schools, which I think are probably the places most neglected and the places that don't know the story as much, and the places that also might be the most meaningful to hear the story.
Yes.
And I really wish I knew of a way to do that.
I can help you with that.
Right.
Okay. I mean, just saying, as far as helping you just brainstorm how you can do that when you, wherever you go.
Right.
Seeing if there's some connections I have, like in New York, that I can connect you to some other storytellers who may.
And to be honest, that's truly something that I would be, even as a career, because I work with, I was an education minor and a history major and an art minor. So those were many things that I'm interested in.
Yes.
Perfect
right.
combination,
And
the art, the education, and history.
It's wonderful.
It wasn't something, and I've even done, a lot of my artwork has been about, I've always done a lot of like Jewish art, and a lot of it has recently been, and during the time I was interviewing you, I was taking a drawing course at school, and we had to do a series of work, and I did a lot of kind of taking photos from the Holocaust and kind of personalizing them in ink and stuff. So yeah,
very interesting.
And I'd like to continue that as well.
Well, we had a student this year, Scott, who was not Jewish, interviewed Mr. Buchwalter, and he created these incredible art pieces about it. And even though he didn't actually use it in the story, he had them in the back room, almost like a gallery.
Really?
And people went up afterwards and looked at them. So we talked about how can we integrate, because I think, to me, teaching storytelling is really teaching art. And using your art, even though I'm not an art teacher of visual arts, I think that's really important. We had a student this year, 2 students who were dance majors, and they danced their story as well as spoken.
Oh, really?
It was absolutely unbelievable. And so I think that's important, and I would really like to continue my work. Like I said to Abby, once you're a student, you're always a student.
Yeah.
And I would be more than happy to do any coaching with you on the phone or in person, because to me, my job is to do what I can within reason, because the students have to step.
I tell you what, in the summer, you will be in New York, so I don't think that will work well. But if I am invited to go to a school, then it would be good if you come with me and see how I present it.
Yeah, I would really.
And I think that would be a good way to do it for you, So, but it all, that's not in my power, because I have to wait from the Baltimore the speaker bureau. They are the ones that send me, when they have requests, this is when I go. So, and I really don't like to drive too far out, because...
Well, first of all, just so you know as well, offering my services here, if you ever are asked to go somewhere and you don't want to do the driving and I'm available, I could take you.
But you are so busy.
But ask, because if it's a few, you probably are asked at least a month ahead a lot of times, aren't you?
Yeah, yes.
So so just ask me, and if I'm available, because I want to see you too. That's part of what I want to watch as well. And if someone can come,
I think also about continuing sharing the story. I know for me, a lot of the fears that you were talking about, I know for me as a granddaughter of a survivor, something that's been pushed upon me since a little kid. I always, I kind of had this fear, knew that I would eventually be the one to have to share the story.
Yeah.
But, until this class, I didn't understand how that would be possible. So this class, really helped me with that.
Right.
But I still kind of feel, especially in the world today and I feel like that's very important. And I'm still not sure how I'll eventually be able to, but I think this class helped like take off a little bit of that burden and helping me show that like, you know, I don't have to share everything, and
Right.
like you were talking about, but like getting across the message is very
Right.
important.
Yes.
To get there.
Well, you know, I think you can present it as someone that you interviewed as a Holocaust survivor. So you know the story, and you
Mhm.
just are trying to,
Right.
you know, to follow it up with how maybe in a different way than I look at it, because you understand the kind of people that children are growing up and how they look at it without being in a war, without having any of these experiences. So you can relate in some ways differently than I relate, because I'm telling the way it was. Whereas you, and the way you speak to them is in their language. I don't speak in their language. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. This is really so good, Bertha, because this is what the students need to know. I think if the students could start the year hearing either directly from a survivor or
Yes.
just hearing from the teachers,
Yes.
that they are actually capable of something the survivor isn't. It will give them
Right.
the confidence that they do have a role.
Right.
One of
Exactly.
the things, I don't remember which year, it was before your years, the second year of the class, one of the young women raised her hand the first day. She was Jewish, she was very earnest, and she said, I just don't know that I will be able to adequately, that was her word, adequately honor the survivor.
Right.
And that was her fear.
Really? Yeah.
And I said, well, I think that you're so concerned, and asking that the first day, stating that the first day of class shows that you will, because you so badly want to, and you will take the time to do that.
Right.
But I think if they could hear that you're asking, as a survivor, asking them to be this channel to reach the kids in a way you cannot.
That's
And
correct.
and you can reach in a way that we can't. And we
Exactly.
each have our roles.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, what I'm trying to say really is that once you don't have Holocaust survivors, then how do you continue to relate to just what is your role then? And so if you can define that role for yourself and say, I think that, for instance, if I would be you, how would I present it? So I just give you an example. You don't have to follow it. It's just the way I would say my role as someone who has interviewed a Holocaust survivor is to make sure that it shouldn't be forgotten, or that, you know, that is the wish of the Holocaust survivors. It should never be forgotten. And because they are not here anymore, I'm making sure that it should follow. That aim of never to forget what happened to 6 million Jews is what we have to remember. This is our role. So you kind of define your role even before you even start your talk. You see? So that's one example. See, when I start talking, the way I introduce myself is something that actually Steve, he did a workshop once for all of us who are speaking, and they had a workshop at the Baltimore Council. And some people, they had some people come from the Holocaust Museum too. It was a workshop, a whole day workshop. And he, for instance, gave us an idea, and he asked everybody, how would you present yourself? That's the number one thing that you have to think about when you want to start talking, which I never had a clue of that. And I kind of said, I present myself like, think about when you were 7-year-old, what kind of a life did you have? And now I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I was 7 years old. So that kind of gets them into it. Because you see, that's the way I present it. And so I get their attention right away, because I was a child too, like there, you know, and what happened to me, and what kind of lifestyle did they have at the same time here. And so that's one way of doing it. And so, you see, this is something, for instance, for the students, I think, if they go out to speak, what would you advise your students how to start to introduce it?
Are you asking?
Yes.
Well, one of the things the past few years we have been starting, and I don't remember if we did it your year, I think we did, but at least when the students start, the very least they should say is, I would like to thank Bertha Schwarz, I would like to thank Vera Kestenberg for the honor of spending the time with me to teach me their story, of sharing their story with me. So right away they are thanking the person who has given them this gift to share. And I really like this idea of announcing right away, this is my role and this is not my role. And what it reminds me of, Gail Rosen, who is a Jewish storyteller as well in Baltimore, she tells the story of Debbie, not Debbie, I'm forgetting her first name, Stern Cohen.
Yes.
She had written some poems in German that were found after she had passed away. Remember Werner Cohen? From your year, it's his wife who had passed away just before the class, Dr. Werner Cohen. So one of the things that Gail, the storyteller, did, and she's in her 50s now, as she started the story, she says, it's Hilda Stern Cohen. She says, I am not Hilda. And then she says in German, forgive my German, ich bin nicht Hilda, I am not Hilda.
No, that's it.
And she starts letting you know right away. So it takes the ease, it reminds us that her responsibility is not to be somebody she's not.
She's telling somebody else's story.
Exactly. She's becoming her as a professional storyteller and a very caring soul. And she seems to be her. If you walked in, it's like you believe it's her, but she's not.
Here you go.
And so I think that could be a way.
That's the right way to do it. So, you know, and everybody finds something that is important to introduce why you are here. And once they know that, then they will listen. And I never had a problem so far. Maybe I will. Except once at the Jewish Museum, I said I don't want to go there anymore. But they didn't deal with it very well, so.
I think that would be a good thing for all of us then to, like on the first day, the first interview, for us to ask the survivor, the person that we're interviewing, what they would most like us to continue on. If we keep telling their story, what they would most want to. Because I think, and also something that we should be told the first day, that like, you know, you can't be expected to, you know, be that person. And because I remember the first day everyone was sitting there and we were told we had to tell the story and everyone was just like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And even like as we were getting up to tell the story, I remember one of my close friends at the time, Rebecca Gill, she was panicking before she got on. She like didn't know what to do. And I mean, when she got on, she was fine. She composed herself, but like the idea, it's so heavy for us to like, we're all so concerned about sharing the story. And most of us have very little experience getting up in front of people and talking. So I think I mean, everyone in our class the first day was just like, my goodness.
Well, let me tell you, every year we do say something like that, and the students don't really hear it because they still feel. So we can try to say it more, but it's hard. I remember this year, at the end of the year, we had more of a discussion than we had other years. And one of the students, Julie, one of the dance majors, she said, Jennifer, Stephen, Uta, you told us everything that was going to happen. You said every single thing. You said we would go to Hillel, we would get up and tell the story, we would be able to do it, we wouldn't lose notes. But we didn't understand. They couldn't, no one can understand in the beginning. But I do think that we can keep reiterating it, and I hope that in the coaching sessions we did that it's not your responsibility to become this person. It's to go inside yourself and find this part, share you, because they're sharing them. And one day, and this is really hard, I think, to explain, but what I say to the students one of the first days is one day, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, when you're 80, people are going to say to you, wait a minute, you knew a Holocaust survivor?
That's right.
Abby, Billy, these people will be the heroes.
Yeah.
And that's hard to see when you're 20.
That's correct. It's hard to see.
Well,
It really is hard to understand, but you get into it.
I think the fact that I up until the time I first told the story, to me I was panicked. Like I couldn't imagine telling the story. I couldn't imagine giving you or your story justice.
Yeah.
And it was up until the first time I got up and I gave the whole thing in front of people. And at the time, like, because every time I would practice for anyone, I was so like in my mind and like I was just thinking about it the whole time. But like, because I was so nervous the first time I got up, I didn't have time to think about it. So like I just, with the emotions I would have felt if it, I just kind of like,
Yes.
kind of let it out. And then afterwards, I like couldn't even remember what I did. I like had no memory
Yeah.
of how it went.
I have to tell you something.
That's very normal, you know. It's the same as an actor going on stage, and you have many actors that get so nervous, especially with the first night or even any other night, you know.
I get nervous. I've been performing for more than 10 years, and I get nervous regularly.
Here you go.
But I have to tell you something about Abby in particular, and then we do have to move to your letters. Out of all the students, there are certain things I'll remember a certain aspect that this student was the strongest in something, and this was, you know, you just remember that.
Right.
We just had, I'd say most students have been amazing, and many have been exceptional.
Yes.
The thing I remember about Abby that is probably the extreme of any other student out of the 49 students is that when she got up that first time and told it in class, I couldn't believe that was her.
Well,
Do you remember I said, Abby, where did you come from? The entire semester I did not know that this was the perform. I did not expect.
Yeah.
I knew she would do a good job. I knew she was smart and that she cared.
Yeah.
Did not think she would be exceptional. I didn't.
But she was.
See, and
I couldn't believe it. I just kept going, that's what I said. Where did this come from?
Right.
It was this strength, she embodied you. I mean, that's what happened. She let go. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
I don't remember I don't remember I just remember, the only thing I remember about the actual performance is that there was a lawnmower or like a leaf blower going on the whole time.
I forgot.
The whole time. That's the only thing I remember about actually.
Right outside the window.
Because I remember someone saying like, you're going to have to talk loudly enough. And then I was like,
that's it.
okay. And then I like took because you have to take that silent, and I remember doing that, and I remember the lawnmower, and then I was like, that's it. And so
it was remarkable. I mean, everyone else, you have a feeling. Like I've seen them along the way. I've coached them. I kind of know where they're going to go. They surprise me. They're better than I think almost all the time. Never to the extreme.
Really?
Never. Not before or since was the difference between what I imagined and what I saw so extreme.
So you really have talent. You don't even you have to pursue it. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really nice.
Well, let us transfer to
so
you.
why don't I do that? And if it's okay with you, what I did is, since I met with you students, these are some of the things that I experienced, that and I just thought maybe that will give you an idea of what did I do with all of this. Because I think you were I moved here in 2004. Okay, so it's...
And they were 2006, the fall.
And you were 2006. I don't think at that time, did I start speaking already to some people or not? Did I mention something?
You had, but I remember it was very recent that you had, because you had talked about how you had started talking to people, but it wasn't something you had done for a long time.
So that's it.
I don't know if we ever said the date today. So today is July 3rd? 2nd? July 2nd, 2009.
Say it again, so I'll cut it out.
Today is July 2nd, 2009, and it is 2 years and 10 months since Abby and Bertha met.
That's right. And it's the first time since then that we're meeting again.
Well, you saw her in May of 2007 at the synagogue.
Oh yeah, that's
So
right.
you saw her half a year back.
After half a year later. Okay, but she had another career in the meantime, went to Denmark and all kind of other nice things.
We could interview you just about that.
Right, that's right. So what I really started to do is to start to go to schools, mostly schools. But I got some very interesting letters that I'm going to show you and read to you. The other thing that I did was that I got in touch with, through the internet, I was asked to tell the story to some of the places where we were hiding. And so, and I wrote some important stories about the time. And here is one story, a book that came out by a student that did her dissertation, a paper, and that is a book that was published. And that book is about my grandparents, where they're hiding. And so I never knew what happened to them. And so here is that book, and all in French. And see, and I tell you how I found out about it. I was in Israel, and my cousin, who is very, very involved in education of the Holocaust at Yad Vashem, got an award, and she invited me. And I was in Israel at that time. Before I went to the presentation, I walked into the archive of the Yad Vashem, and I wanted to know what kind of papers do they accept. They only accept original documents. And I decided that I wanted to know what does it do with it. So I went to their office, and a lady was very nice, and I said to her, could you show me some of what the people send you? And when she showed me that folder, there was this woman. She was from where my grandparents were in that village, you know? And she lives in Israel. And so I got in touch with her, and she said, you know, I'm writing a book about Lacan in France, but I tell you what, there is a student that wrote a book. She is writing about the Jews in that town, which I haven't seen yet. But the dissertation is much more about how did the Jews arrive there, why and when, how were they treated, how were they taken away by the French gendarmes. It's a terrible, you know, very painful to read. I can't read a lot of it. And here you have the list. 160 people lived there, were hiding. And if you look, I show you, my grandparents are on that list, in that book, right. Here, see, this is my grandfather, and this is my grandmother, you know? And they tell you, when they were born, they were lived in Poland, and they were deported by convoy number 30 to Auschwitz. This, okay?
That is unbelievable.
That's right. So then comes the next thing. That's all happened since I saw you, you know? Debbie, that's all happened since I saw you. And so here comes the next story. And that is that through the Rabbi Schneerson, where we were hiding, so they got my name through her. And she doesn't communicate too well anymore, although her mind is perfect, but she doesn't want to deal with it.
And who is
too
this?
much. The daughter of the Rabbi Schneerson, Hadassah. Okay? So they got in touch with me, and they said there was a conference there, and they decided that the Jewish families that lived in Gers, in that province, from 1939 to 1945. And so here is the story. So they were bombarding me with questions, and here is the picture of the conference there. See? Yeah, and they were there were two families there that decided to do the research on that because their parents, they were French, their parents were deported because they helped Jews. So they were killed. And so they wanted to know a lot about what happened, you know? So here you have pictures of, this is a French, that is a school with Jews. They were all Jews that they were hiding in a school in that area. So they got a lot of information. They got a lot of information, and here is that book. It was printed. It was put together as a book. Mm-hmm. And here, see, that was sent to me in January, and it tells me, no, this year in 2009. And this is for me, Bertha, which is my maiden name, because this is where I was there. Let me see if I have here something. And of course, there is a lot of information about here. Okay, so I'll send them a picture. So this is my sisters and me here.
This is you?
Yeah, I'm the bigger.
That's Bertha, the oldest one.
Okay.
That is amazing. Unbelievable.
See, here
And
I'm
this-
9 years old.
Who took this picture? How did it get to that?
I don't know who I sent them that picture.
Oh, you sent the picture.
I have no idea how it came to who took that picture ever. And here are some, and here is a story of that home. See, it said, the children of Chateau Sévignon, that was the chateau where we live, and these two people wrote they had, this is a presentation that they gave, about 4 or 5 pages long, and you have all the detail. Who is the people? And here, this is the Rabbi Schneerson. That's a rabbi.
And he is the man
He's the
that
man who
hid,
saved
helped to hide the three of you.
60 children.
60. And that's when you had to have the head,
That's
your
right,
head shaved
yeah.
and your mother visited
Right,
you.
yeah, that's right. Boy, you should remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so that's that rabbi. So they have these pictures, and
It's
these.
the rabbi that saved
Yeah.
Bertha and her sisters and 60 children.
What?
Were all the children French?
No.
I mean, from Belgium?
No,
They
you
were all
had from different countries. We couldn't even communicate with them. We couldn't. They spoke Polish, they spoke German, they spoke different languages, Italian, from all over they came. And here it shows you. Here you see. Here you have this. They were here. They have. These are the Orthodox Jews, you know, with a head and
Students that are
Yeah.
studying?
yeah, it's right here.
Mm.
And this is the chateau. That's the chateau.
Oh, that's where you stayed?
Yeah, that's where we stayed. See, if you look at our picture here, you
Oh,
can
yeah,
see part of the building in the background. No, it must be the previous page. No, it's okay.
Let me see what's in there.
Okay, that's it. Wait.
How, and it was because of the man on the bus that you found out about that chateau? He was trying to get you there?
No, that.
You already.
Oh, he is the one that was supposed to bring us there, which
Right.
he was arrested, you know. Here, that is a chateau, okay? And then if you look here on the picture, what happened to that picture? Maybe one.
I don't suppose any of this is translated
Here,
into English.
look, no. See, can you see the
Mhm.
building here?
That's the building
Can you see?
behind them.
That's the building, that's the same building.
See that picture? I really can't stop. I can't stop thinking about the story about when you got the lice, and so when your mom saw you,
Yeah,
and
that was, I tell you. See, there are some things that you never forget for the rest of your life. And here you see that's another thing, which is separation. Here she comes, but she can't take us, and we have to leave, and you never know if you're going to see her again. You know, that part of it. So these are two of the stories that I have to tell you. This book came out, and I don't think, Debbie, that I ever showed you that book. That book came out and this is in 1940, the Belgium escaping the Nazis. And that was the beginning of our escape, right? So while we were visiting in France, you know, going from one place to another, we ended up in that village where we were hiding at that time with my parents still, before my father was arrested. I just am looking here. When that was published in 2004, this book. So it's not so long ago, right? Okay.
And all of this is in French. None of these are in English at all.
None of these are in English, but I will show you something. Okay, so here, this is a town where we arrived, Montauban. This is a town, Montauban. Okay.
I remember Laura talking about Montauban.
Yeah, okay, and then here, this is Marshal Pétain. This is a general who was in charge of southern France, the Vichy. He was in charge of the Vichy government, which actually collaborated with the Nazis, right? Okay, that's a train. See, now here you have pictures. And I show them to the children when I go to speak.
This
is the train that was bombarded, and we had to get off the train. And this is how you were wandering around. And then the next page, you will see how I said we were hiding in the trenches, right? Here. You see?
And how old were you at this time?
7. This was the beginning, this is 1940.
And this is right before you were safely at the chateau.
Oh, that was way before. That
Right.
was just beginning
Very
when
beginning.
we left Belgium. That was just the beginning. So that was another book, and this book I take with me. Here, you see here how the plane that bombarded the trains. Okay, so these are. So this is what I thought I wanted to share with you. Okay, the third thing that happened since then, which is very, very exciting, and that is that the daughter of the rabbi, I am very much in touch with her, and some money was given from the French government to YIVO, which is Jewish Institute of, I forgot the name of the title of it.
Is it in Israel?
No, it's in New York.
Oh, is it part of the yeshiva?
It's part
Yeshiva
of
University
Yeshiva,
is
part
part
of
of it.
Yeshiva University, that's right. It's actually what it is, it's a collection of everything they had to do with Jewish and Yiddish and from Europe. They really were sending over a lot of material before the war. And now it's an archive. So I didn't know anything about that, but when that Harriet Jackson is her name, I got an email from her.
And who is this? Is Hadassah?
No, that is an archivist at YIVO.
Oh.
And Hadassah gave her my name, and she wrote to me an email, and she said, and what do you think that she sent me? She sent me a list of the children that were at Schneerson, and my names and my sisters are in there. This is how she communicated, and she found there in 40 boxes that he donated before he died to that institute at YIVO. So it didn't take long, and she wanted very much to meet Hadassah and me. And she never met Hadassah, the rabbi's daughter.
Isn't it Hadassah you're talking about? She
Yeah.
never met?
She never met the archivist. The archivist never met.
Oh, okay.
And so she said to me, listen, I'm a stranger, and you know Hadassah, and she is 85, 86 years old now. And she said, you're in contact with her, and why don't you come to New York? I said, I'm willing to come to New York. And I asked Hadassah if she's willing to come, because I don't know if mentally she was ready to see that material, you know? That was a lot of material. Well, I arrived there in November. I told her, I said like that, I'm coming under 3 conditions. One condition was that I want you should interview Hadassah mostly. And I want you should make arrangement that Yivu should have a documentation of Hadassah. That's part of the history.
Was she alive?
Hadassah.
Was she with you at the chateau?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How old was she when you were
Oh,
7?
she was 15.
So
she
she's
was older.
8 years old. Okay.
Yeah, she's 8 years old. And she has quite a story, believe you me. She's unbelievable. In short, and I said another thing, I want that Hadassah should come, and I want to see the documents, and I want to go to the cemetery where the rabbi is buried. These were my conditions. And I know exactly where I was never in that cemetery. So Hadassah said, okay, I'll come with you. I'll come, and I'm willing to do it. So I arrived from Baltimore, and she arrived from, are you videotaping all of this? Okay. And she arrived from Borough Park, where she lives. She's, you know, the Chabad are there. And we meet, and we hug, and we kiss, and we go to see the archivist, and she's all excited. That archivist, she couldn't. In short, we sat there for 3 days. And she was willing, she was the one in charge of these documents. And so I tell you, the things that I discovered is unbelievable. So what I discovered, in short, just to tell you, because it can go for hours, what we discovered in these boxes are that he didn't throw one piece of paper away. So all the originals are there, and it depends. How did he get food for us? He had to go to the police to get permission to go to the market. He had to ask for funds in order to support us. People were sending clothes. How did he collect donation? How did he have flour to make matzah? The correspondence that he had with people that were in labor camps and in intern camps, in 5 different languages. It went on and on. I tell you, I really get the goosebumps even when I talk about it. And you know, I mean, there is so much. I asked to make some copies. Letters that people asked him to help because they didn't have medication and they were sick. And could he send them some money so they could buy some because they had no money? And could he save the mother that was terribly sick and somehow? And he was making, so he had everything documented. The list of packages that he collected for our food, literally, in order to send to these camps for the people to have food, you know? I mean, this is unbelievable stuff. After the war was over, he was writing to each village in France to ask them if they have Jewish children, because he wanted to have them back. Okay, so here you have, and so these are the documents, 40 documents. So she sorted it out. When I came there, when I came with her, her office was full of maps of where we were traveling, all the different places we were, and the dates where, and she had with a pin. You know, she wrote me a letter. She was already so involved in it. She put the date 1942. I said to her, Harriet, you got mixed up with the date. She said, you know, I live that thing. I dream about it. at night. This is how involved she got, because it was so fascinating. And so she finished that thing, and now you can't. They are going to digitize it. So for a while you can't touch that material. One of the things that she found there, that I was in Purim, I was Queen Esther, and she found a list, and my name is there. Would you believe this?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you remember that?
No, I really don't. So amazing stuff, So here you are. So this is what, of course, now I'm involved with that, and this now in Tisha B'Av, this is what I told you. Finally, they are going to have a presentation in the show where Hadassah was a founder when she came to the United States. They founded the Chabad show. It's called what's it Carlebach show. Shlomo Carlebach. That's a Shlomo Carlebach show that Hadassah founded. She was in charge of it for all those years, and she never talked to anybody about it. Finally, we have an interview. I was interviewed there at YIVO, and I have the DVD about that interview. So that story, it was not like with you that long. And Hadassah and I were interviewed together on that, what she remembered and what I remembered, and it was really. And then all of a sudden her son-in-law comes, and he said, Hadassah never told us anything. So after the third day, I drove with her to the cemetery. By the time we arrived here, I could hardly take any pictures of the tombstone. It was an amazing cemetery, I tell you. Do you know what that Schneersohn, the famous Schneersohn, the Mashiach? Well, he's a cousin of his.
I was wondering if they were related.
Yeah, they are related. So she showed me where he was buried, where his wife was buried, and the big, the different cemeteries. It's not like a regular cemetery, that cemetery. So it was very, and then she took me to her family, and her son-in-law said to me, I really want to thank you, because until now she never could talk to us. So now, finally, it's the first time that she's going to that show where she was, and she's going to tell her story. And they're going to, Elie Wiesel is going to be there, and he's going to speak. They make a whole program for 9 o'clock in the morning until 12 o'clock at night. And, and I'm going to go there. So that's what happened since then. What else did I have to tell you?
Wait, I have to ask you, did Hadassah tell you stories about yourself that she remembered? Did she remember anything about you or how she saw you as a 7-year-old?
No.
So many.
That she did not.
Bertha, I have to use the restroom.
Okay.
That's it? So, Kadita Dira is her name, the young student, and she writes to me as follows. Dear Mrs. Schwarz, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come to visit 7th grader at Winston Middle School. I think that your life story is so incredible. I know it was probably hard to share your life story, but you did not start to cry even for those emotional questions we asked. It was so overwhelming, all the things you had to go through, and such as going without food, having to go with strangers, moving from one place to another, having to change your identity, not seeing your parents for weeks upon weeks, and having to learn new languages. As young people, all we can do is to only imagine what you had to go through and help prevent this from happening again. When you first started to tell your story, it brought tears to my eyes, but as you went on, I thought about the overall life story. I was still happy that you were still a survivor, and is gratefully willing to share your story with youth today. From you, we can pass it on to the next generation, so that they can pass it on. I can only imagine all the things you had to go through, Once again, I would like to thank you for adding your contribution to my knowledge of the Holocaust. If you do have any spare time, I would not mind keeping in touch with you by mail or email. And here is warmly, Hadima Dina.
Oh my gosh. How old is this person?
She's 7th grader.
She writes like, almost like a
Yeah.
college student.
Would you believe this? That's what is
How
it?
well thought through each aspect.
Yeah.
That's a keeper.
What do you mean? You know what my idea is? I would like to make a book out of this.
Definitely.
Okay, so let me see what else I can find here. Thank you for coming. Really, your name is Tiazia Wallace. It's Tiezair Wallace. Mrs. Schwarz, my thank you to you. Dear Mrs. Schwarz, thank you for coming. I really learned a lot about you. I'm so sorry about the 150 people that are no longer with you. If I were you, I would have given up, which would have made me weak, but you are strong. You are strong enough to tell different schools about the past. You are looking towards the future. I loved your life story. It was very adventurous and outgoing, seeking different hiding places now and again. Also, when you talked about the time when your mom found you, when you were in hiding, that was like a dream fantasy. It reminds me of the movie Finding Nemo. In the movie, the son was separated from the father and he traveled the ocean to find him. Of course, they were fish. Don't judge me. I swear I'm not trying to call you a fish and of course Nemo, but the same amount of problem as you. But believe me, you should see the movie only if you have seen it already. Well, anyway, I'm happy you came and told your story. I thought that this hard time can lead to a great life. You taught me that a hard time can lead to a great life. Sincerely. Okay? I tell you, I have so many emails, I don't know what to do with this. Okay, here, look at that. This is with thank you all over the page. Okay, one more of this, okay, from this time. Thank you for the lovely gift of coming and sharing your life story. Your story brightened my day, and it continues to brighten my thought. You inspired me to keep strong and try my best to reach my goal. When you shared, I felt as though I was there in the Holocaust with you. I felt a little of what you felt, but not as much as you. I felt heartbreak, pain, soreness of the body, and loss of sense of direction. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Please come back soon, maybe not this year, because basically school is over, but maybe next year in the 8th grade. Almost forgot, here is my phone number and email. It was nice to be remembered by you. Your thoughtfulness means so much to me, warmly and humbly. These are the letters.
The combination of this mature language and thought process with this juvenile, childish
Tell me,
spirit is
Isn't it
so
something?
beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
And these are the students at this disadvantaged
Yes,
school?
yes.
Well, they don't write like,
And you know who is a teacher? An Orthodox woman. Would you believe this?
And how they relate it back to their.
And these
What
were
they know.
all African American children. You can see by the names, you know. Okay.
and that you, I will never forget that you taught me that you could, how did it, tell me the exact sentence, you taught me that you could have a hard life
Yes.
and
And
still
succeed.
succeed or something like that. That was,
It really, you could cry. I tell you, I cried when I read it the first time. Okay, the next one is from the Gilman School, and they were, I think, 5th or 6th grade. February 11. Thank you. Can you see thank you? And look at this thing. These are all drawings, so they must be younger kids.
They're
you know?
fifth, because that's when they study their
Right,
unit.
they are
It's
fifth.
grade.
60's fifth grader were there.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know if I can keep. Don't worry, Mrs. Schwarz, we'll take care of it. That's what the teachers told me, but they were
They
quiet.
were amazing.
Amazing, right?
Amazing.
Okay, so here it is. Thank you for coming to our class on Friday. It was interesting and sad at the same time to believe that some people had to go through that kind of torture. It really seems like torture to be put through that, to have to leave your home, to lose your father, and it's all that terrible. Thank you again for that wonderful speech of those terrible times. I really appreciate it. Wars are the worst that ever came with a human development. If we didn't have wars, we'd be perfect animal race. To imagine there is a war on this planet, that our leaders started by butting into other countries, in other countries' affairs. I'm sorry that you had to go through all of that just to live. Hitler was an awful man to kill off people of your religion. Hitler was a hypocrite and a bully, and you should say that more than anyone else. My class want to thank you for spending time with us. And it says over. The Jewish God bless you. May the Jewish God bless you. You took on a great responsibility. Someday the world will recognize you as a hero. I'll make sure of that. If no one else will, for the final time, thank you for your time. Huh? Isn't it, tell me, isn't it worth to ask these letters? That kids can write like that, you know? Would you believe this?
The honesty that they, like, I think someone who is slightly older wouldn't be able to be as honest because they would be more
Exactly.
self-conscious about it.
Exactly. Okay, so this is it. So this is a postcard, very nice, but look inside of it. Oh yeah. Look what happened to you. Okay. See? Look at that. Can you see that? Courage, bravery, all of that on that side. Dear Mrs. Schwarz, thank you for coming to Gilman and talking to us. Your speech was very touching to me. I think you must have been very brave taking that train, being bombarded every night. You must have been very confused about who to trust. I was so glad you could come. Thank you again for coming. Sincerely, Chet. Okay, so
There's just one more.
one more?
Yeah. They're so
From which-
good.
Okay, I'm going to give you from the last one.
That's fine.
So the teacher came over and sat with me for 3.5 hours.
The Winston teacher?
Not the Winston teacher, it's this teacher here. The Winston teacher left that thing in front of my door, this package here. But this one couldn't give away these letters. So she was postponing it, and finally I said I need to have them. Okay, so these were not typed letters.
And where is this from?
This is from the Francis Scott Key Elementary School in Baltimore. I think
this is the one.
that was the 7th grade. 100 students. And they were very well informed. The teacher was fabulous. She really was. Okay. Dear Mrs. Schwarz, thank you for, you want, here. You want to see the handwriting, right? It's good.
Yeah.
She described to me, look, she put that folder together for me, that teacher, you know. Some of them she helped the kids who couldn't write, didn't know how to write. She said, I'll write it for you. You just tell me what you want to write. So she did. I just would like to, to tell you the way I was greeted there in that school. In both schools. They knew that I was coming, so they were waiting for me. And Jeanette Parmigiani, she was the one who drove me there. So these two boys were waiting for me, and they took, usually I come with a little bag, so they took my handbag and they put this on this shoulder and put my arm under their arm and brought me to the school. Okay, and then I'll show you what was in that school after I'm finished. And in the classroom,